Back with you tonight here on In Focus. South Africa has an abundance of talent that can help it through the tough times it is going through. These are the words of Mark Barnes in an open plea to President Cyril Ramaphosa to unleash appropriately qualified persons to help the state. The business leader, known as, for his tenure at the South African Post Office as the CEO there, was responding to the dire economic conditions faced by households, rolling blackouts and failing state-owned entities. Mark Barnes joins us now to elaborate on his inspiration. Mark, good evening and thank you very much for your time. I gather, maybe President Cyril Ramaphosa reading your note would say, I've already done that. I've got 28 ministers and I've appointed 40 deputy ministers, and they have set out all sorts of boards and sorts of things that are currently running SOEs. And, are you saying these folks are not talented enough to run the country?
Father, good evening, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for your interest. I mean, the essence of the problem, we have to look beyond the specifics, and I think we all know a lot of the specifics are crumbling, but the essence of the problem, as I see it, is that there remains a divide between political power and economic power. Okay, and so we have on the one side of the table the politicians who have an agenda or a number of agendas, and we have on the other side of the table people who are seeking to optimize shareholders' funds and make profits and all of those kinds of things. And we actually need for both of those sides to come together in some common purpose. That common purpose must find intersections between the contributing requirements of both entities. So we need transformation. That's not even up for debate, man. We need, developmental finance. We need roles and organs of the state to be funded in a certain way. We need regulatory encouragement, if not enablement, by the state and so on. So business and government need to work together. Okay, and we're not working together. In fact, we're on opposite sides of the table. On one side of the table, you've almost got an inferiority complex about business, and on the other side of the table, you've got like a superiority complex about it. We think we know everything. We must stop that, leave our baggage at the door, and start focusing on the problem in front of us instead of the divides that we see when we face each other.
Yeah.
We're standing on opposite sides of a chasm, yelling at each other, both thinking we are right, while in that valley between us, things are falling apart. So we have to hold hands. And I believe the skills and the talent and the will and the energy and the desire is here. When I walk around normal South Africa and I bump into people wherever I might go, we like each other, man. We're not at war.
Yeah.
And yet the divides at the highest levels are still apparent and, if anything, reinforced. So I think that's the first thing. Can we recognize? And there's a thing in flying called airmanship, okay? When you're flying through rough weather, it's the airman, the experience, the know-how, not just the technology, not just the airplane, it's the know-how, it's the experience. Now, that experience is not yet evenly dispersed, and it needs to be transferred. We talk about transferring shares, we talk about transferring ownership, we talk about all of these kinds of targets and things. What we need to do together is mix a cake recipe where we're transferring expertise. It's a normal thing everywhere in the world. The captain sits in the plane, the young pilot flies, the captain advises, and so they are a team. And so we, SA Inc., I'm not talking about foreign fabulous merchant banks giving us advice, all that nonsense. I'm talking about the people that are resident and eager and at risk here.
Yeah.
We have vested interest. My children are here, my capital is here, my love is here.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
We want to help.
Yeah.
And we want to be welcomed with open arms.
Are you suggesting that the president should do the very same thing that many have been kind of criticizing him for, that he is creating, a parallel structure within government where he's got his ministers, but he keeps on appointing task teams, or he keeps on appointing investment hunters who are going to go out and find money when there's DTI and when there's other institutions. So he must create this team of 100 champions on the side of what is already in place. How does it look like?
I've been to these investment conferences, man. I've been to these meetings where we talk politely to one another, in deference to one another's agendas. And we all walk away from those meetings not really knowing what to do, but promising an outcome that requires both of us to deliver it. Okay, we've got to get past that. I'm not talking about another task team or another, group of people that go overseas with a general message investing us. I'm talking about people who can deliver measurable, incremental, small, obvious change. Give me a flushing toilet in Diepsloot, for goodness sake, man. Yeah. Okay, and then I'll get the vote. Okay, and so I'm saying, get experts, whether they male, female, black, white, I don't care. Okay, get people who know self-evidently what they are doing and bring them into the side for a limited period of time. I'm not saying forever. There has to be a transfer. We have to end up with a demographically representative management and control of South Africa. We all know that. That's self-evident. You'd have to be a fool not to recognize that that's an outcome which is required. And it will happen, but only if we have a commercially stable economy that can generate profits and pay taxes so that the government can take those taxes and invest in these very such social and other needs which needs to uplift our people. You can't, if there's nothing to transfer, you can't talk about transformation. Yeah. If you have a dysfunctional primal services like water and electricity and education and healthcare and dirty streets and stuff like that, you can't talk about who should have a piece of that. Right. There's nothing to share. Right. And I can tell you from the peer group where I operate, we all want to be here. We all want to hold hands. Yeah. But we need to invite each other with equal energy. Business needs to stand up, stop being polite, stop saying yes, stop, submitting to some political will that they don't agree with. We need to stand up and go, this is how it works. Now, if we do that, the people who know how to build dams and sewage farms and railways and things of that nature will come here in abundance. The people, the capital that wants to develop new energy, be it solar, nuclear, I don't know the right answer. That capital will come here in abundance. Why? We've got a fabulous raw material country here. Yeah. We've got the best climate in the world. We've got resources naturally, and we've got an extraordinary population of people, South African people, who have come through the most awkward and horrible history together. And we're still here, man.
Yes. There are some who will argue, Mark, saying, and you know this is a conversation that is going to come, and I know you don't want this debate, but you're inviting it nonetheless with this particular call, and some will say, but what Mark is calling for is this growth without transformation, which will only reinforce in the inequitable patterns of the spread of the wealth. So Mark and his cohort who are ready to help and build this country, they must first agree that we need to break down the structural impediments that allow industries to be dominated by a few participants. If we agree there, that's a good place to start.
Well, I totally agree. I think it's fundamentally necessary. And why don't you go and ask the people working behind the counters of the post office whether I believe and did that? Okay. Yeah. So I'm not interested in that nonsense anymore, man. We've got bigger things to deal with. Okay. There is a new elite, but there's no middle class. Okay. So there are lots of people whose kids go to the same schools across all demographic profiles and so on and so on, and they're quite comfortable in this new limited, different capital form of apartheid, if you like. I think it's rubbish, okay, and I don't think it's, most importantly, I don't think it'll survive, okay. Whether you like it or not, having this amount of division, this concentration of wealth, and it's as concentrated as ever it was, okay, just there's some different participants in it. That will not prevail. It will not survive. So why don't we cut a deal? Why don't we sit down and cut a deal? Why don't we say, okay, we're going to put you, Mr. Expert, in charge for 3 years. These are your deliverables. Get the business to a sustainable, profitable, tax-paying level. Employ and educate and train and become part of a demographically appropriate management team. And it is a deliverable that you have to hand that over in that form. Yeah. Who wouldn't want that? Yeah. Build, operate, transfer, they keep talking about. Why don't we build, operate, and then transfer South Africa instead of transfer South Africa without building and operating? So, why don't we have as a if you asked me to do a job now, okay, and it was a manifest commitment of mine at the post office, I'd say my first deliverable is a new management team. Right. In 3 years' time. Right. So I'm not interested in this debate about whether we want to do it or not.
Right.
It's rubbish. We have to do it.
How do we do that in a context of a country that's been waiting for jobs, that's been waiting for social change, that's been waiting for all these things, and they've been waiting for it for years? Are you asking them to say, give us 3 years, then you'll have these things in 3 years?
Well, I think it'll take less than years. First of all, we've got to take risk on each other. We've got to look at each other in the face, and we've got to say, this guy is not a white guy. This guy is not a black. This guy is an expert. This guy is a good. This guy can do. We've got to, or guy, man, female, I don't care. We've got to start looking at what we can do, not where we come from. Okay. Now let's just say we cross that thing. Okay. Then I don't think it'll take 3 years, because what we need is hope and belief.
Yeah.
Imagine in 6 months' time, if some brave decisions are made, and if some people who self-evidently should play in the same team are borderline forced into the same room, and have to work with one another to an outcome which is measurable and rewardable and incremental. Okay?
Yeah.
In 6 months' time, before Christmas, man, people will go, that's interesting. I can see. I mean, I was driving to drop my son off at water polo practice the other morning, and I saw them painting the road on a Sunday morning. Okay. And I thought, that's lekker. I mean, when did we stop? When did we stop and start looking? When you see a little bit of work going on anywhere, we all celebrate it because we are in this thing together. There is no survival strategy that keeps us apart. Economic and political power, white and black, all of the things that we carry forward divide. There is no survival strategy that will tolerate, let alone celebrate that. And the sooner we get over each other and start focusing on what we can build for our children, the sooner they'll all come back and all of the capital will come back, and we can build this fabulous thing that we all stood in long queues for many hours to vote for. And it's obvious to me, but it requires leadership and risk, and it requires to set aside those who have agendas other than common interest. We have to create vested interest, okay? And we have to create measurable, incremental, day-by-day interest, so that you can go, I built 3 toilets, they're working. The railway between, Richards Bay and the coal mine is working, and the rails are all in fact. We need to demonstrate that, because as we have it now, every time we unwrap something, it looks worse than we expected. Now, I'm not going to go into how bad things are. I think they're critically bad. Okay, I think that the behavior of people, in terms of violence, in terms of the way crowds are starting to behave, the way people are starting to disrespect one another, the way all of the standards, the traffic, everything that we do now is cared less than we cared last time. We can't do that. There's too much to gain. Okay, and so I'm saying, can we take all the rubble off the table? Okay, and can we get like-minded people, of which there are many, there's thousands of me, okay, and sit them down and go, okay, can we build something that's tangible and obvious, and can we allow the right people to control it and then design I mean, if you're a municipality and you want to build a dam, well, don't think you can build it. Get the dam builders to build the dam, then strike a deal with them on revenue share and transfer the asset eventually, and get all of there's enough brain power and experience and will in this country for the business people and the politicians to co-act with one another. But
some are arguing today, Mark, that, as you put it, in all walks of life there's talent in whether in black, colored, Indian, white in this country who are ready to do this. But they are currently skeptical of going into any kind of arrangement with government. I mean, you yourself raised your hand and said, I can buy the post office and I can fix it. And they said, no, we reject your offer, not at this particular point in time. So there are many like you who are raising their hands saying, we would like to, but we are afraid that when we get our hands into this thing with government, we're going to come out quite dirty.
Well, we've all got reason to be suspicious of one another. You've got to just get over it. You've got to take a risk on each other. You've got to lean across the table, and you've got to be the person who takes the first step towards the middle. Okay? And that requires extraordinary leadership and bravery and foresight and gathering. And we've got to lean across the table and hug each other. Okay? Because there's no other way. Okay, so it takes leadership. We have to take risk with each other. We have to give each other the benefit of the doubt. We have to know that there are exceptions to the rule. We have to know that not everyone's a white monopoly capitalist, and not everyone's a trade unionist, and not everyone's a firebrand revolutionary. We are a mixture of peoples, an extraordinary and beautiful mixture of peoples that have not yet come together because we don't have common interests and definitive leadership and goals to which we can aspire and look at one another. I mean, look at something. Who would have said that rugby worked? Of all the things in this country, that was, one of the most. It's working. We're the world champions. Why? It's still based on merit, but there's such a mixture of fabulous. You go to a rugby stadium, you go and see who's cheering the game on. I'm just taking one example. There are so many examples of that, where the focal point is clear. There's one objective in rugby: get the highest score when the final whistle blows. Okay, everyone knows that. Okay? And if you have to pass, if the big, strong prop has to pass to the skinny little wing because that's the only way he's going to get round the number 8, then he does it because it's necessary to achieve the objective. The objective in South Africa is first to survive as we stand today. Okay, to create an attractive investment demonstration destination by demonstrating incremental vested interest change. The money will come pouring at us. Money is never a problem. Money goes where it finds the right risk return. We will have more money than we know what to do with if we find common cause and if we have like-minded people and a mixture of expertise and political will and all of the other things that go together to make a cake attractive for people to invest in. We will never run out of money. Eskom didn't borrow it from the taxpayers to build Eskom. It went to the international markets and said, we've got this fabulous electricity thing, give us some money. They gave. We could scrap Eskom tomorrow and raise all the capital we needed for new forms of energy. I'm not suggesting that's what we should do yet.
Yes.
Capital.
Mark, appreciate it. Common purpose. Okay. Got you. Made the point. We're out of time. Thank you very much for coming on there. Mark calling for common purpose, taking the rubbish off the table and all getting around the table and saying we're going to build this country and make it work. A noble call. I don't know whether it will be gaining traction and will be supported by many. You can, of course, continue to reflect on that and give us your views at Newzroom 405.